Oh, like it's hilarious. He shows up and he's wearing like Converse sneakers.
Yeah.
He like wears Converse sneakers, shorts, and these like really loose, these like baggy sweaters.
Yeah.
And smokes cigarettes and eats granola bars. And
just has like this really gruff voice.
Yeah, or at least that's how I impersonate him. Okay. Yeah, actually, no, that is kind of how he sounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and he's got all these great stories about like, we just had a fucking Hallmark moment, man. I've always wanted to put that in one of these movies, but they won't let me.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is CineCasters Ultimate Timeline.
Welcome back to CineCasters Ultimate Timeline. This is, or I guess I'm just shortening it to CineCasters now, but we'll see. I got some stuff to work out, but welcome back anyway. This is, I'm your host, Janglez the Strange, and as always, I'm here with Nathaniel.
Hello. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've been, both of us, kind of super busy. The last one we did was Transformers, which I haven't actually put out yet, which was recorded in September. And it is now January.
Oh, wow.
But the reason for that was because I was finishing my master's, and you've been working on another project.
Yeah, I've been working on a documentary that's been taking my time.
Yeah, and this is also really unique because for the first time in a long time, we're both actually in the same room.
Yeah, this is actually really nice.
The first 3 episodes we did, we were in this room.
Yeah, this very room.
And then the next, 10, not that much, next 7 or 8 episodes were all done overseas.
Yeah, but across the ocean.
Yeah.
Although Transformers, you were back, I think.
Yeah, but you were still in BC.
That's right. Yeah,
so
it was still
we were still 6 hours instead of 9.
That's true. Yeah,
yeah, or 3 hours.
No, 3 hours.
9. Yeah,
3
hours instead
but
of 9.
6-hour flight.
Yeah.
We'll say.
So today we're going to try doing something a little different that we've never done before. We literally just finished maybe 10 minutes ago.
Yep.
Watching The Illusionist.
Neil Burger's The Illusionist.
Not like Kevin Neilberger, like Neil Burger is his name.
Yeah.
The Illusionist. Not to be confused with Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, which is an amazing movie.
Yes. We are not talking about The Prestige.
We're not talking about The Prestige. That's with Hugh Jackman and Scarlett Johansson, Andy Serkis, David Bowie.
David Bowie's in that movie.
Yeah, like so many people. Like that's an all-star
Christian
cast.
Bale,
yeah, Christian Bale, Michael Caine.
Oh, right.
And even the woman, I can never remember her name, but the woman who plays Christian Bale's wife in that movie is also a big name British actress, but I can never remember her name. But we're not talking about that movie.
No.
Today we're talking about The Illusionist, which is also really weird because it also has an all-star cast, which I thought was weird.
Actually.
Because we'll get into what our thoughts are, but it's like Edward Norton, Jessica Biel, Paul Giamatti, Philip Glass does the soundtrack.
Right.
Anybody else that you recognize?
None that come to mind. No.
Neil Burger, you don't know who he is.
No, I don't actually.
Okay, so I wonder how that's going to work out. But so the real difference this time is we're not just talking about the movie. We also just watched it, took notes, and we're going to try this live. We've never done it live before.
Usually what happens is we each watch it independently, and then we take a day to go and collect our notes and then come back and go through it. But this time we were making notes as we were watching the movie.
Yeah, and we watched it together. The only time we've ever done that before was Fantastic Beasts.
I think, did we watch Temple of Doom together? No, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
No, it was just Fantastic Beasts.
So Fantastic Beasts is the only time. And actually, we talked about how maybe when we did Fantastic Beasts, we talked about how maybe watching it together may have changed your perception of the movie, because I really like that movie.
Right.
It's messy, but I really like it. And you before were like, I'm really excited to do this movie because I think it's problematic. But then after watching it with me for your second time, you were like, actually, that was less bad than I remembered.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I wonder. Also, I really like watching terrible movies, like Sharknado and stuff like that. So I wonder, like watching it together,
right,
making fun of The Illusionist. Like,
that was the best part.
Yeah, that is the best part. And we're both big fans of Mystery Science Theater 3000, so that's always super fun to do. So I wonder if that actually changed I mean, I think it is more fun to
It
go
made it
watch
more
movies.
tolerable.
Yeah, since you've been back in town, I've seen 2 movies in theaters, both of them with you.
Oh, that's
and
hilarious.
I never go see movies in theaters.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I enjoyed both of them. I wonder if it's A, just our movie selection, or B, if I just have more fun going to see movies in theaters with people that I enjoy, because I never go see movies in theaters.
Well, I mean, I'm a big advocate for the big screen experience. I think it's. I
think
go to the movies all the time, but I'm weird.
I think I'm starting to come around. My only problem is this is so expensive.
It adds
But
up.
I think I am
it does add up. Yeah,
starting to come around because watching.
or go on Tuesdays.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it still adds up, but
Yeah. Usually there's not movies that really grab my attention. There's been a couple this year, actually. But
around this time of year, yeah. So we're recording this in January. It's award season, so all the better movies,
not even the better movies. Like, I had a really good time with Star Wars, and that wasn't an amazing movie, but I just had a fun time watching it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder. I don't know. Maybe I just got to get out to the theaters more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
Like,
it.
still be picky about what I'm watching, but maybe I got to get out to the theaters more. But enough about the theaters. We got to get into it. So, I guess we'll just start with thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Illusionist?
Another thing we should both clarify. We talked about this. Was neither of us have read the short story that the movie is based on.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't know about this going into it, but at the beginning it says based on the short story by whomever the author was. Yeah. And also sometimes I should also say, because this is a period piece.
Right.
Sometimes I'll actually do some research.
Yep. Same with me.
Like historical research or anything like that. So we're both going into this blind.
Yeah, exactly.
We went into the movie with whatever we had. So this is a bit of an experiment for us. So I'm actually...
I'm pretty excited too.
Me too, but I just wanted to say, sometimes I'll do some historical research, and I'm assuming you do as well.
Yeah.
Or I'll just be like, I've got an idea about where I want to take this, but I don't know what the historical significance of this is. So this movie takes place in Vienna in the 1800s, late
We assume,
1800s.
yeah.
Well, we know it's Vienna.
Yeah, well, we know it's Vienna, but with the time period, I'm not sure if we were able to figure out if it's set in an exact, if there's an exact date at which it's set.
Yeah, it's got to be, I think, late 1800s, because
I'm going to assume
electricity in the theaters and around on the streetlights. So yeah, I'm going to assume late 1800s.
I assume that as well.
And I don't know about the history of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, how that works, because they talk a lot about the emperor and stuff like that. So I was hoping actually, while we were watching it, I was like, crap, I really would have liked to have done a little bit of historical research.
Oh, same with me.
Because that time period is one of my favorites. It's very steampunk, like steampunk.
Right.
But it would have been nice to do some research.
Yeah, definitely.
So-
Well, because one of the big questions that I would have had was how much of it ties into real historical events in terms of the history with the monarchy.
Yeah.
Because that's a big plot in the movie.
Well, I was actually wondering how this unfolds in terms of Austro-Hungarian wars and stuff like that.
Right.
Were they building up to war before World War II or World War I? Sorry,
Right.
I don't actually know a lot of Austro-Hungarian history.
Me
right?
neither.
And I say Austro-Hungarian being completely ignorant and saying actually, it's quite possible that that Austro-Hungary wasn't a thing at the time. I literally am.
Yeah, we're kind of in the dark on this one, yeah.
Super ignorant.
So if we say things that are just wrong, I apologize in advance.
I also apologize. Double apology from us. So if we say
fact check everything.
Fact check everything we say, because we're not historians.
We're talking out of our asses.
Yeah, we're not historians. Usually we
Right.
like to do research, but we like to focus on narrative structure.
It's more about
and
exactly.
the film. So
Yeah.
with that being said about narrative structure and film, let's get your thoughts on The Illusionist.
Yeah, okay. Oh boy.
Go for it. You start.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't really know what really where this movie was going. Yeah, okay, I didn't think it was a very strong movie.
Yeah, I'm in this. I like to write out things that I have complaints about.
Yeah,
At one point in time, they basically say that Edward Norton's character, who is Eisenheim, the illusionist, the main character, they're like, oh, he travels the world learning about magic, and I was like, that sounds like a great movie. I'd rather see that that movie. And then what else is there? His haircut in this whole movie is just awful.
Well, okay, so one of the things when we were watching it, I at one point I went okay, I see why this movie isn't working. Part of it was I felt that Jessica Biel's character didn't do anything.
She dies,
yeah,
but then she doesn't.
Exactly, and I just kind of felt like there's part of the reason why it wasn't working for me was because, first of all, I wasn't sure whose story it was. It kept changing. So where it's Edward Norton, and then it's Jessica Biel, and then it's Paul Giamatti, and that sort of thing can work because there's movies that do that in a very interesting way. A classic example of this is the Chungking Express.
The Chungking or Chunking?
Chungking. It's a Wong Kar-wai film. It takes place in Hong Kong.
Oh, so it is Chungking.
Chungking, yeah.
When you first said it, I thought you meant like the chunking, like as in like a chunk.
Oh, Chunking.
Like a Chungking Express?
No, the Chungking Express. And it's interesting because it's in two halves, and each half of the movie follows a completely different character. They're loosely connected, but they're very different. And is that a GoPro?
Yeah, I was going to try and like film a part of it, but
nice.
It's not working.
Yeah, sure.
I should have set it up before.
No, that's cool.
We'll deal with it later.
So it can work, but in this case, it just felt really scattered. And the other thing is, I felt that Jessica Biel's character just didn't really contribute anything to the story, and she should have. She should have had she deserved a much more active, more involved character to play.
Yeah, like, I mean, we talk about feminism. We've talked about feminism a couple times on this show.
It's inevitable, I think,
and which is weird because we're two white dudes.
I know.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago when we finished watching Star Wars. Actually,
right.
We came back to your house, and your sister was actually talking about how low of a bar the Bechdel test is. She was like, "It's amazing how many bad movies pass the Bechdel test." And I was like, I think because the Bechdel test is a low bar. Like, it's actually such a low bar, and the fact that some of our favorite movies don't pass it,
right? Yeah.
And does a good movie need to pass the Bechdel test? No, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is the Bechdel test is a super low bar for women having autonomous goals, right?
Yeah.
I think the Bechdel test is a strange bar that we use, a strange metric, but because you can have, as long as you have, I think, a goal-oriented character,
I agree,
that happens to be female, then, and you show that they're goal-oriented outside of just get the man.
Right, exactly,
right?
yeah.
That's a weak goal, and it can work if you have other goals, right? I've often said this as well in writing literature or watching television or anything. A romance plot is great. I love a good romance, but it can't be your only plot.
Right.
There has to either be your B plot, like secondary to what's actually happening,
right,
or it can be the driving main plot, but there has to be other things going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if the main plot is a romance, then you need to have something else going on.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah, for me, it really just comes down to characters that take, by their own decisions, by their own actions, affect something in the story. Yeah. So they actually, them being there bears consequence of what happens by some choices that they make.
Yeah. I actually think we talked about this before as well in passive heroism.
Right.
I think we talked about it in Fantastic Beasts.
It was also in Temple of the
Lost Ark.
Doom. Temple of the Lost Doom.
Temple of Doom. Yeah, in Temple of Doom. I remember talking about passive heroism versus active heroism. In which, when you make decisions and those affect the plot or characters around you that move the story forward versus when things happen to you. And I think both can be useful, but at a certain point in time, if you are moving the story along using passive heroism, then eventually you want to get to a point where active heroism, because you can actually show like a very dynamic shift in your character. I'm thinking of Stranger Than Fiction.
Right, okay.
Where Will Ferrell's character is literally the subject of passive heroism. He's the hero, he's the main character, and things happen to him. And in a meta way, that's what moves the story along.
Yeah.
And eventually, he decides he can't deal with this because he thinks he's in a storybook, and he takes an active role in figuring that out. Right. And so I think that's just a very meta example of what we're talking about. But yeah, Jessica Biel's character, Sophia Von Tesha, Duchess Von Tesha, or whatever they call her. Yeah. She doesn't do anything, and yet she's the central plot conceit of the movie.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so that's why that was one of the things I was thinking of, actually making her the main character.
Yeah. This movie really only has 4 people that do anything. Edward Norton, Jessica Biel, Paul Giamatti, and Discount Jude Law, who's we never actually looked at the acting list or credits to figure out who he was, but it's the Crown Prince of Austria, I guess.
And I think for me it was also, it became a little one-dimensional in the end. It was like, oh, he's the bad guy.
Yeah, I wrote it down here. This movie is just a high-budget film about tropes.
Right.
The beautiful Duchess who the poor butcher's son can't have. Right? And
so
he
was a cabinet maker's son.
Whatever. Oh, yeah, you're right. Cabinet maker. Not that it matters.
It totally matters.
It totally doesn't matter. Other than the locket, it totally doesn't matter.
Right.
And like they easily could have just used the fact that he made the locket as a means to show how clever he was.
Right.
Like, I don't know. You had mentioned that the credits at the beginning were very long.
It's getting more nitpicky.
It was like
a long credit sequence.
Yeah, it was like James Bondy. I wonder actually if they just like filmed this movie and then were like, we need to pad the runtime.
It does feel like that. I'm not gonna lie, it does feel like that.
On a technical standpoint, like I wonder how, there were some shots in there that I really thought were quite good.
Yeah,
but I wonder like how the movie was behind the scenes.
I mean, that's always the question, right? Because it's so hard to tell. Like, I know how hard it is to make a movie, and it's easy to pick things apart. And I'm aware of the fact that, there are some things that happen behind the scenes. It's quite possible that they made the movie and then someone in the edit room, some suit higher up was like, oh, no, that's not we should make this movie instead. And then poor Neil Berger is like, that's not the movie I wanted to make. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's true because to me it feels like there is a good movie in here, which is why we do this.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like there is a good movie that could have been made here, and then they sort of shoehorned the love story into it. And and it feels like the love story takes hold, and
it becomes a central thing. I don't think it was really what should have been the central focus.
Neither do I.
I think it actually, in my pitch, it's part of the movie, but
mine too.
It's not the central focus of the movie.
The last thing that I want to go over that was a big thing for me that took me out of this movie was that they all sort of have English accents, which is fine. They do that for European movies all the time.
Right.
I just mean like European movies have European accents. I mean like they're in Vienna,
right,
and they have Viennese accents.
Right. They're speaking English in Viennese.
Yeah.
Austrian accent.
I guess it would. Except the problem is they go back and forth between this like pseudo-Austrian accent.
Right.
Like Paul Giamatti does it a couple times, and even Edward Norton does it a couple times.
Inconsistent.
Where you're like, are you trying to be British or are you trying to be Viennese? Because it sounds like you're trying to talk with like this like Austrian English accent, like mixture, and I almost feel like it would have been better if they'd just been like English accents.
I agree.
Like just straight English accents, and we'll let the audience's suspension of disbelief let them be like, yeah, we're Europe. I know this is kind of a cultural like whitewash to be like, oh, all Europeans have English accents, but audiences are smart. We'll pick it up. Shorthand, right?
It's like what they do with Tintin. Like they're all French characters, but they're all speaking British accents.
Yeah. I think at least for North American audiences, I can say that that's easier to deal with.
Right.
But my preference is always subtitles.
Yeah. Oh, same with me.
Always.
Same with me.
If you're going to make a movie like this. Or I actually didn't mind what they did in Valkyrie.
I never saw that, actually.
Oh, it's a great movie. So in Valkyrie, what they do is at the beginning, it's Tom Cruise as... I can't remember the name of the character, but he's reading a letter, and it's reading in German, and then they sort of crossfade it, where it fades from German to English, but you realize he's talking in English.
Oh, that's an interesting tool.
Yeah, it was like sort of a transition. So we realized actually the whole movie takes place in German, but they use the beginning over credit to
set up.
Yeah, to basically say like, hey, this is German.
Right.
We're speaking in German.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Great movie.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Okay, I have two pitches actually.
Okay.
I don't know how I managed to do this, but because we did it off the fly, I actually have two pitches, but one of them is a joke.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I think either or is valid.
So
you do both.
I'm going to start with my joke pitch, and then you can go into your pitch, and then I'll finish with my pitch. Okay, here's my joke pitch.
Good.
Change nothing in the movie.
Okay.
So the movie's exactly the same.
Okay, I love it.
Except at the end, we find out that none of the tricks were like mechanical or anything like that. They were all real, actual illusions.
Okay.
And it's a prequel to Doctor Strange. The whole thing is a prequel to Doctor Strange. When he was traveling the world, he went to the Sanctum Sanctorum,
right?
And met like the master from Doctor Strange, and so all of his tricks aren't actually illusions. They're all actual magic. And he's like the precursor to Doctor Strange.
I mean, I think that's the best version of the movie.
Yeah, actually,
Probably the most profitable.
all you would really need to do is actually just add a scene in the end.
Just recast Edward Norton as Benedict Cumberbatch. Oh no, it wouldn't be. It'd be like his grandfather.
Yeah, it'd be like
or something.
Why would
or
he,
some other dude?
Just some other dude who happens to be also a wizard who went there.
Right.
But all you would literally need to do is just show one flashback or whatever
Right.
of him going, or actually in the end.
Yeah.
In the end, when they're like run off together and
Uh-huh.
they're like at the cabin in the woods,
Right.
and like she's grooming a horse because bitches love horses. Like, I hate to say it like that, but one-dimensional character. Oh, she's an empowered female, so she can ride a horse. Do you know how often that trope comes up?
Oh yeah.
They'll just be like, oh, she can ride like she doesn't ride side saddle because she's a strong, independent woman. That is not like that is shorthand, and it's terrible shorthand. Get rid of
Right.
it. Come on,
Right.
movie industry.
Right. Yeah.
Like, make your female characters awesome without being like, look how awesome our female character is. She doesn't ride side saddle. Like,
right.
everyone loves horses. Like, everyone loves horses.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked there.
It was a good little
Aside.
tangent. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't literally, instead of when they run off, just have them run to Tibet or something like that. And in
Right.
Tibet or in China, wherever it is,
Right.
that's where they
What if you did it as like a prequel to like a Harry Potter movie, and it's actually like in the Potterverse?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like with magic, you can pretty much do whatever.
That's right. Yeah. Insert franchise.
Insert franchise here, right?
Yeah.
You could easily just be like, actually, his illusions are magic, and he's an X-Men. I mean, like,
Right.
I'm shrugging like a
Yeah.
bunch right now. Just like, what do you want from me? Like,
Right, yeah.
It could be, I don't know, pick a franchise.
Howard the Duck.
He's already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my joke one. It's a prequel to Doctor Strange, and I actually think that just makes the movie 100 times better. Just simply being like, all of his tricks were real,
Right.
and Doctor Strange. I really like Doctor Strange as a character. The movie was okay too.
I agree. I like him more as a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to get into your pitch?
Oh, okay.
So-
that was your pitch.
that was
right.
my
I
joke
loved
pitch.
it.
It's just a prequel to
Yeah.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, that's interesting. Mine is pretty loose, as I haven't really what's the word I'm looking for? Put all my notes together.
Yeah, mine's pretty loose too.
Consolidated them.
Yeah.
One of the things I have here, I have a note that says the coup idea is interesting.
The coup?
The coup.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The whole intrigue.
We're going to take over
intrigue.
the empire.
Yeah, exactly. I actually liked the idea. Oh, the first line, there was one line that caught me that I thought, oh, that's an interesting idea for that character. It's the prince calls out the illusionist and says, he's trying to trick you, but I'm trying to enlighten you. Which one do you think is the more noble pursuit? And I thought that would actually be an interesting source of conflict, where what if the prince, because this would be coming at the time of, I guess this is sort of post-Enlightenment era.
Pretty much during the Enlightenment.
Would
Sorry
it
for
be?
sneezing.
I guess
Yeah.
it was towards the end of it, though, right? Because like late 18th century.
Yeah.
We would have. This is when
But
kind
yeah.
of the existentialists, early existentialists / postmodernists, I guess, are starting to not quite postmodernists.
Not quite postmodernist.
But, well, I'm just thinking like Nietzsche.
We're getting into post-structuralism and existentialism.
Kierkegaard. Yeah. But
Although, yeah, we're not quite there yet because both of those would have been 19 or.
oh, right, Nietzsche would have been born, but he wouldn't have really been publishing anything.
Yeah.
So
at
right.
this point in time, we're looking at, based on what I'm getting from the movie, I think we're looking at like Beethoven and his contemporaries.
Right.
Like Jane Austen would have been born, but she wouldn't have.
Oh,
put
okay.
anything,
Oh,
anything out yet.
so this you're thinking it's actually a little earlier than maybe when.
Oh
I'm
no,
thinking.
sorry. Austen's too. Oh no. Jane Austen came out. Oh no, yeah, I'm thinking way too early.
Okay.
That's way too early. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, I mean this whole like this idea of rationality being sort of the what people should aspire to, and I kind of like that mentality for the prince. And here's this illusionist who comes along who's now using trickery to trick people. Essentially, actually, what I was going to suggest for the movie is not changing too much, but actually making it starting with the princess being murdered supposedly, and telling it from Paul Giamatti's
Oh my god,
perspective.
that's exactly what I thought.
Oh wow, that's so
That's
funny.
exactly what I thought.
Yeah, and I thought it's more interesting as a murder mystery.
Yeah,
and Paul Giamatti trying to solve this murder and trying to basically keep the peace.
Yeah.
And he's effectively acting as this guy. He sees all the turmoil that's impending. He knows about the coup that's coming up.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to keep order. I just want to make sure there's no violence. And then basically where it leads is, I don't know exactly all the intricacies of how it works out, but basically the Illusionist and the Duchess do conspire together to overthrow.
So he is the bad guy.
So he is the bad guy, but the prince was planning to overthrow the emperor, and his reason for doing so would have been because he saw where the empire was going, saw where his father was taking it, and so you actually have another subplot
angle
with him and his father, and you see the conflict between the two of them, and so you see how he's actually trying to maintain. He wants to overthrow his father, because he wants to take the empire in a more progressive direction.
Yeah. I actually really like that, because then we're not just like bad guy for bad guy reasons.
Yeah,
but we could also, because you could sort of set it up where the crown prince is the bad guy to the Duchess and the Illusionist.
Yeah.
Because he won't let her go, like needs to get married to her for political reasons.
Yeah.
But you could also be like, actually, he's also like a really good guy. He just, do you know what I mean? Like instead of having your bad guy be all bad, be like,
exactly.
There's more going on here.
And in my version, he actually does kill her.
Yeah.
But because she found out about this plot and threatened to tell somebody else.
Yeah.
And so she actually takes up the position of where she becomes more active as a character is she sees what's happening and she has to wrestle with this and go, okay,
did we get all this through flashbacks?
No, we would.
Would you start with the murder and then work your way back? Like, how did we get here? And then and have it be like Paul Giamatti explaining to someone how we got to that.
It would probably be Paul Giamatti investigating, and cause she would maybe talk to the Illusionist at some point, and he gets it out of the Illusionist or something like that. Yeah, that's where I haven't had all the intricacies quite worked out yet.
Yeah.
But basically, the backstory, either this would be found out later or it's told, as it's unfolding. She finds out about what's going on, and she goes to the prince and says, I know what you're planning. I think it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's what causes conflict. And then the prince has to go, wait, what do? I don't want to kill her, but she knows this thing, and if she tells someone, so then
cat's out of the bag.
So then that's when the murder starts.
Yeah.
But then there is a love subplot between her and the Illusionist. And the Illusionist knew about what happened. He maybe didn't know about the coup.
Yeah.
But he's just trying to take revenge and basically get back at the prince. And so he starts all these tricks to try and say like, oh, he killed her. But maybe either he knows or he doesn't. He maybe suspects
that there was more going on.
That it was more going on. And
that's
so
really
he's essentially trying to incite unrest.
Yeah.
And then this would be somewhere in here you get the prince saying like he's trying to trick you, but I'm actually trying to enlighten you. Which one's the more noble pursuit?
Yeah.
And throughout all this, Paul Giamatti discovers the truth that, oh no, you actually did kill her. So that makes you a murderer.
Yeah. So
and the prince is going, but I had no choice. Like it was either that or she was going to out me, and then I was going to be
dead anyway.
Called out for treason. Yeah.
So he basically took the lesser of two.
Yeah.
What he saw as the lesser of two.
And in my version, it's the Edward Norton character, it's all trickery.
Yeah.
You find that out for sure in the end.
Yeah.
There's no, because even like in the Illusionist,
movie, she shows how he does it, but it doesn't really show how he does it.
Exactly.
That was dumb.
It's almost too ambiguous because there's things that happen where you're like,
there's no way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And so in my version, it would be like,
I like that you have this underlying, like the Illusionist plot sort of can happen very similarly to the way that it does on screen, like as it played out. But you have this sort of underlying like power structure thing happening where like, so the difference between your story and your plot, like your plot is what happens, your story is what's it about.
Right? Exactly.
So the plot is about this Illusionist and being in love with this Duchess and this whole overthrowing thing. But what it's really about is your like story is really about subterfuge and political power.
Exactly. Well, there was one line, the Edward Norton character has this other great line where he talks about power. What is the basis of power? Is it something that's inherited? Because that's where I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea as a concept for a movie. So and there's little pieces of it that are definitely there.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I think the reason it doesn't land in this movie is because the prince is just a bad guy.
Just a bad guy. But like we talked about this while we were watching it. Like he literally just has antlers everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's super ominous. And then they talk about like, oh, he's the bad guy. How can you tell? He beats his wife. He beats his wives, his women.
Right.
He beats the women he's with. Right. He's against democracy. Like
Right.
it's almost as if they were just like, oh, pull out all the bad guy like tropes, put them into a hat, and we'll shuffle them up and pick 2 or 3.
Exactly. And that's why I thought, well, what if it were a case where his father was
Worse
a bit more of a tyrant, and then him going, I'm doing this because it's actually for the greater good, becomes a much more interesting approach. And it creates a more interesting conflict, in my opinion.
There's more happening there for sure. Yeah, I like it.
Thank you.
It's good.
That's essentially my pitch.
Mine is very similar.
Okay.
So mine is essentially, I wanted to start with the Duchess's murder.
Okay.
So she gets murdered. We see that happen, and then we all we see is that she's been murdered and something sketchy happened. I don't think it would happen necessarily the way it did in the movie with like the horseback and whatnot, but fine, sure, whatever. Then we see Paul Giamatti's character gets introduced, and we introduce him being like, hey, this is the Inspector of Chief, and he's been hired by the crown prince who was said to marry the Duchess, and like he's going to come in and do this thing, right? But we also know that he's sort of under the weight of the crown prince.
Right.
So what he starts doing is he starts following leads and sees that, oh, the Duchess isn't who she says. Everyone was like, oh, she was this great, she was going to be princess, but we also see that, oh, she wasn't what she said she was. She was also maybe seen with the Illusionist a bunch of times, and maybe there was an affair going on there or something like that. So then he starts to be like, oh, okay, maybe there's something going on here with this Illusionist. So he starts investigating the Illusionist, and through that process, somehow he has to come to grips with the Illusionist is pulling off all these, Edward Norton's character is pulling off all these amazing tricks, but none of them are out of the realm of possible. And so then it becomes sort of this thing where Paul Giamatti's character is the inspector is trying to prove how to, for whatever reason, I don't know how we get there, but Paul Giamatti's trying to prove how Edward Norton's character pulls off all these tricks by going to see other magicians, being like, how does he pull this off? How does he do this? Like, and he slowly begins to understand how illusions work, how magic works. And he's like digging up things into everyone's past, and he realizes that, oh no, the Duchess and the Illusionist actually knew each other, and they weren't just, like, he wasn't just gonna kill her. He actually like was having an affair with her. They were in love, and he slowly starts to pull this back. Actually, they're childhood friends, and all this stuff was going on, and we realize that slowly but surely he like uncovers all this past about them. And he starts to become suspicious of the crown prince, right? He's like, something happened here where the crown prince is I think it might be implied.
Right.
Or implicated, sorry. He's becoming implicated. And so he's slowly trying to figure it out, and he leads him to eventually to the point where he's like, I have to do something about this. I also think it would be cool if there was like another murder that had happened. Like, so other suspicious murders that lead back to the crown prince.
Oh, interesting.
And so Paul Giamatti is like, I need to do something about this.
He's connecting more dots. Yeah.
I need to do something about this, but I can't. How do you arrest the crown prince?
Right.
And so it becomes a bit more like classism.
Right.
We're seeing Paul Giamatti. Essentially, what I think has happened is, has Edward Norton, the Illusionist, knew that something was going to happen to the Duchess, and set up this chain of events the way you would an illusion, right?
Right.
Misdirection and constantly getting you to look in other places. And we could even have a cool scene where he's just like, the point is misdirection. I make you look in other places, right? So that you don't see the trick I'm doing here. And then, right, pulls a card out of his hand or something like that.
Right.
And then
which is the prestige.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what I needed to do was I needed to show you I needed to basically show you an illusion, and then show you how those illusions are done by making you discover how magic works, in order to show you that you were ready to see what you wanted to see. And then he shows that the Duchess isn't dead.
Okay.
Right? The Duchess isn't dead, but she was murdered. And then what we realize is Paul Giamatti basically goes like, the two of them knew that he was going to kill the Duchess the way he had other women, and put her in place, and then made Paul Giamatti's character see how all these murders have taken place by using her supposed death as the way to set it up.
Oh, interesting.
Right? And basically the whole idea is that it's classism. Paul Giamatti is like, I have all this evidence, but how do I move against him?
Right.
Like, people have known about this. There's always been this thing, but how do I move against them? And in the end, when he finally reveals the Duchess wasn't dead, and he can see how the whole thing fits together using Edward Norton's like the whole plan that Edward and the Duchess laid out, he's like, I think like what we can do is take him down. And in the end, he still can't arrest the Crown Prince. But what he can do is, and he says this in the movie, what he can do is he says, while you're inside the palace, I have no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But if you leave the palace, then we'll talk.
Right.
And so he's basically like said, like, I can't do anything about this, but I know.
Right.
And others will know. So you are basically, I don't have any jurisdiction here, but you do there. And then the whole thing is like, it's basically V for Vendetta, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's, how like V basically sets up the two detectives to figure out that it was the government who did. That's what I wanted to do, is basically, it's the Duchess and Edward Norton. So Jessica Biel and Edward Norton's character basically saying, we knew something like this was happen. We put her in place, set up this whole thing so that we could show somebody else what was happening.
Right.
But throughout the whole thing, I wanted it to be Paul Giamatti's character, who basically, like, as he uncovers stuff about the Illusionist, he's like, wait a second, like, these two were lovers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, maybe he did kill her. And then he starts, just as he starts to trust the Illusionist, like, he gets pulled back again, like, oh,
right.
He knew her from before, even, like, they're childhood friends, like, how can I trust him? But then he also gets pulled in the direction of the prince, you know what I mean? And you could even have another player in there as well. Like,
yeah.
I just think of the idea of him constantly being like, who is it? Who did the thing? And so but it's all misdirection, because the Illusionist, like, the whole plan has all been an illusion.
Yeah.
It's all been basically like, I needed you to be misdirected so that when you figured out the plan, it was all there for you.
Exactly.
You knew all the working parts.
Exactly.
But I can't just tell you how the trick is, because if I tell you how the trick works before you've seen it, it loses its effect. You might not believe me. Right? But if I set the trick up, and then show you how you can discover it without telling you, and then you go and do it, you've done all the work. You know what I mean? So you, like, basically, like, the illusion is the plan. And we also can discover that throughout the whole process, Edward Norton's character has been doing magic that can be explained. It can be explained, but he's just, like, that good at it.
Right.
So, like, maybe one of his tricks at the very end, where he and the Duchess, like, disappear, can be like, okay, but how did he do that one?
Right.
But all the rest of them, we can see, like, Paul Giamatti, like, is investigating magic and how it works. We can see, like, he's like, actually, you can do it like this. And then Edward Norton in the actual movie, he says that would be one way to do it. Mm-hmm. But he never says that's how to do it.
Right.
So, like, anytime Paul Giamatti does it, he can, like, replicate, because he says he's like an amateur illusionist. Mm-hmm. In the movie, he says that. And he's like, so Paul Giamatti, like, starts to get better, and he's getting wiser. And anytime he sees the Illusionist do something, he's like trying to figure it out, and then he does it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or we see how Paul Giamatti would do it, but we never see how Edward Norton would do it.
Oh, that's
and then finally, when he disappears, we can see, or like some big trick, some big set piece, we can finally be like Paul Giamatti being like, I don't know how he did
that's
that.
That's an interesting way to approach it.
But the entire time we know that, or at least we should know that, he could be an actual magician, but he probably isn't. We just don't know how he does all his tricks. We know how Paul Giamatti slowly figures them out, but there's always he's always one step ahead of Paul Giamatti. He's either an actual illusionist or he's just one step ahead.
Right.
I just think that would be cool in terms of, like, how deception works, how magic tricks work, like illusions work, and classism. Like, how do you take down someone?
Yeah. Because that was another element of the movie that I liked, was the whole class thing too, because that's another theme that's interesting.
They brought it up, but to me it seemed like it was just another one of the tropes. Like,
exactly.
Please, sir, I'm poor. That was so. These poor kids just walk up and they're like, "We're poor. Oh, are you?
Yeah. Oh, here,
like,
have some
you
money."
Couldn't tell by context clues. Like, I know they were setting up for later on, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Like, but then also, like, Paul Giamatti is a butcher's son, right? Who's slowly gaining power through through his association with the Crown Prince. And you could play on that, be like, if I go down, I'll take you down with me, he says. But we also know that Edward Norton is, the illusionist, is a cabinet maker's son, is a wood carver or whatever son. And then the Duchess is, I think there's a lot, but it seems to be done just for tropes, just for like, hey, we can establish these characters quickly if we use shorthand, bad shorthand. And I think that if you really play with the class, like where Paul Giamatti is like, all of this is happening and no one has ever asked or questioned because the prince has been covering it up for years. So there's this whole like brush it under the cover, and Paul Giamatti realizes like some of the things that he's even done in the past have been used to cover up some of the murders.
That's an interesting way of approaching it. It's what's interesting is that I think that's kind of where they were trying to go with the movie in terms of like it all being set up by the illusionist as as a plan to just fuck with.
I mean, that's what I got out of it. That's when I was watching. I was like, why wouldn't you just do what I just said? Everything that I just said. I think it makes for a better movie. Which is the point. But
exactly.
I don't know, because when I was watching this movie, I said this to you a couple times. I said this movie is so middling, it's boring. Like, I want this movie to be great. The costumes are great, the sets are great, but the plot moves almost predictably. And the only reason that it's entertaining is because we were making fun of it. Like, it literally just feels like something you put on a rainy day because you need to watch something on a rainy day. And I wonder, I even said this as well, I wonder how much of this movie's success was because people kept getting it confused with The Prestige.
Right, exactly. Which is very possible. I know for a while, I mean, even to this day, like people be like, oh, you remember that movie, The Illusionist? And then there's that guy and he like loses his finger and she's like in this vat of water and she drowns. Like, oh no, you're thinking of The Prestige.
The Prestige, yeah. I wonder actually if I mean, The Prestige is
because it came out around the same time.
It must have come out in the same year. I wish I had internet, otherwise I would check. But I wonder actually, The Prestige is a great name for a movie because it works with the theme of the three parts of a trick. I can't remember what the three parts: the turn, the setup, the turn, and the prestige. I think that's what it is. It works really, really well with that. But I wonder actually if the movie was supposed to be called The Illusionist and then they couldn't.
Oh yeah. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah, and how much of this movie, because part of it, you see those seeds planted of oh, it's supposed to be a trick. Like, how much of it was that, and then they were in the middle of writing it, and they went, oh shit, this movie Prestige comes out, and that's what we were making.
That's what we were making.
But this is like what we were making, but better. So how do we change it so it's different enough from that, but still, because that happens too.
Oh yeah, where a similar movie comes out, and then you realize you have to backpedal.
There's an interview with the guy who wrote Arrival. Do you remember Arrival?
I've not seen Arrival.
Okay.
I want to.
Because around the same time Interstellar came out.
Yeah.
And the original direction with Arrival was closer to Interstellar. And then they went and saw Interstellar and went, oh, shit.
So, but Arrival is also really excellent.
Arrival is amazing, yeah. What they ended up coming up with in Arrival was really smart, I felt like. And it's a very different movie.
Yeah. I really want to see that one. But
I recommend it, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean... I'm frustrated with this movie as I am with all middle movies where you're like, there was some really cool ideas here and it fell short. And I think the pitch that I've given is, it has some similarities with The Prestige, but when you're dealing with magicians in that era, I feel like, how are you going to do anything else?
Yeah, exactly.
But I also thought that my plot was closer to V for Vendetta.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of, it's so hard to figure out exactly how all the bits and pieces would fit together differently to make it work, because like watching the movie, as you said, it is similar, but there are definitely certain things. It's not like you would need to change a lot just from a story point of view to make it work. And I think really what it is, as you suggested, it does kind of meander a little bit. And I think the audience, like you watching as the audience, you figure it out.
Yeah. And
there's a way to do it. There is a way to do it where you can... It's not even just misdirecting the audience. There's a way to do it so that even if the audience has figured it out, they get to that ending and it's satisfying when they're like, "Aha, yes,
it
I knew
didn't feel like that movie was all that satisfying. It felt like I knew what was going to happen anyway."
Exactly.
Yeah. I also think that this movie falls flat because, and I think this should be the main thrust, even in my rewrite, the main thrust should be when the murder happens. And we have, I guess you could have the illusion of the Duchess on stage again. I think the main thrust of the movie should be, is is Eisenheim the illusionist an illusionist or a wizard? Like, does he have actual
Right.
magic, or are his tricks all...
Right.
And I because what I find is, like, a lot of the time I was like, oh, so he's doing actual magic. Like, it's just an actual magician.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of what it felt like.
I know, but then it loses its... I think it's better if, instead of just being like, oh, he does actual magic, it's like he's doing these incredible things, but they all could be real.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think it would work really well, actually, if we had the trick with... Like, because they open the movie sort of with that, with the trick with the ghost on stage, but they don't go into detail. So after the murder, we introduce Paul Giamatti's character, and then on stage we have the illusionist be like, I can talk to the dead, and he brings her apparently back from the dead, right? Well, I mean, at the end of the movie, it's discovered that she's not dead.
Yeah.
But he brings her apparently back from the dead as like a ghost, and like has a conversation with her. And then the whole time, Paul Giamatti is trying to figure out, how did he do that trick? How did he do that trick? And then the whole thrust of the movie, as he's investigating the illusionist and the prince, is, I need to figure out how he did this trick. So he slowly starts becoming better at magic. Oh, I figured out how he did the card trick. I figured out how he did this ball trick. I figured out how he did... But how did he do that? The bring her back from the dead trick. And that's what leads him to discovering that she wasn't dead, which eventually leads him to...
Yeah, exactly. Well, it works. Well, what you've done, it works too, because you're figuring out, as the audience, you're figuring things out with the main character.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, I remember I made the comment about the credits being too long, but even the whole prologue at the beginning, there's so much that you're like, this is just information. This is just exposition. There's no...
That's why I wondered if they just needed to pad it out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
To me, it feels like this movie's overly long. Like, I mean, I don't even think it was that long.
It felt long.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It felt long because I think the information that we were getting was conveyed either too slowly or not well.
Right, yeah.
Right? I mean, show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Is often what we hear. And I think that's basically summed up with the scene where the 3 or 4 poor boys show up.
Right.
And you can see by their clothing and the way that they're acting.
Yeah.
Not acting as in the actors, but the way that they're behaving towards Eisenheim the illusionist is that they're poor, they're beggars, and yet they have to say it. We're poor.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you need to say it?
Yeah,
but that's the way this movie is, and I think that's the problem. Like, if I had to sum it up in a nutshell, it would be that scene. This movie is all theatrics and no substance.
Yeah.
It's all, I can show you, or I can tell you what's happening, but instead of showing you. And I think this movie would have worked better if it was more like a reveal at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't feel like a reveal. Maybe it's because we've both seen it before.
Yeah, well, I think, and one of the things with my pitch, I tried to stay away. I stayed away from that intentionally because I was also trying to go not prestige.
But when you're dealing with magic, I feel like that's the shtick.
Exactly.
Right?
It totally is. It totally is.
If you're trying to make a movie, any kind of movie, about magic,
it's going to go in that direction. It kind of has to at some point, which is why I sort of made it less about the magic. Although it's going to factor into it. Yeah.
I didn't mind that. I mean, that it was less about the magic. And even mine is still about classism.
Right, yeah. Well, that's the thing. And that's why it would work. Why it works more as a movie, actually. Because it's about those themes that are actually, it's actually conveying something. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I actually, what's interesting with yours, you have some really cool, like, there's some cool scenes where you have Paul Giamatti trying to recreate these magic tricks, and
because I think that's where the like a large thrust of the movie could be, is not just Paul Giamatti investigating, but also like him as a character. Because I do feel like this movie needs to develop its characters better. Yeah. Right. So I feel like it works well because as the illusionist, if we give him a little bit more mystique, you can't have someone with mysteriousness, a mysterious background as your main character, because then the audience doesn't get anything, right? So that in this way, the illusionist himself is, yes, a main character, or at least a central fixture, but we don't know anything about him. Is he an actual wizard? The public claims that he's an actual wizard, right? But now we have Paul Giamatti, where he's not just investigating, it's also he, as an amateur illusionist, needs to know how the trick is done. Right. Right? And I know I'm borrowing heavily from The Prestige, because that's what both Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale's characters do. They both need to one-up each other. I don't feel like Paul Giamatti needs to one-up. He's just like, you could even have a scene where he's like, as an investigator, like the reason I became an investigator is because the world is a puzzle. Right. And he just needs to figure out how things work. And if I figure out how the puzzle works, if I figure out the behavior, the motivation, the opportunity, I can solve that murder.
Right.
Right? I can solve it. I can make the things right. And I became an illusionist, an amateur magician for fun because I could figure out how something works, right? When you see something unbelievable, there's a logical explanation. And then we could have even your theme of like rationality versus where Paul Giamatti doesn't want to ruin the illusion necessarily for the public.
Right.
He's like, I want to know how it works, right? How did you bring her back from the dead? How did you have that conversation? Right. Which slowly leads him again,
which ties into trying to solve this mystery.
Him trying to solve this mystery because if he solves the mystery of how he brought her back,
right,
then he can solve whether the magician was involved somehow.
Right.
The illusionist was involved somehow. Now, if you go back and watch the movie again after seeing the ending, you'll be like, oh, the reason the illusionist brought her back was because she was never dead, and it was to set Paul Giamatti up on the right track to solve these other murders that have happened. Because one of the things they said in the movie, again, just trope. Oh, apparently the crown prince pushed a woman off a balcony just to hide the fact that he'd beaten her up.
Right.
And it was like, great, fine, evil trope.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas in mine, I wanted to be like, no, let's go into that. Let's be like, maybe there have been other things, but nobody's looked into it because it's the crown prince.
Exactly.
And make those things central. And so mine literally almost becomes like a quote-unquote heist movie.
Oh, okay, right. Interesting.
Right. I don't necessarily want to say a heist movie where, like, at the end where it was like, oh, us getting captured was part of the heist all along.
Yeah.
Kind of. Same kind of mechanics of filmmaking work that way, where everything is revealed at the end, but it's really just about, it's V for Vendetta. I'll say it again. It's just V for, I just stole V for Vendetta. It's just V for Vendetta. I'm not clever.
No, it's good. I like it.
Yeah. It's just V for Vendetta. Yeah. And that was our live take on.
I thought that went pretty well.
Yeah. I was worried. I thought I would be more unprepared, but I think it went pretty well.
It actually worked pretty well. Yeah.
Maybe we'll try it again.
We'll see what the listeners say. All five of you.
Them. Oh. but as a practice, it was a lot of fun. Like as an
exercise.
Yeah, I definitely think
movie making.
It would be hard to do over long distance.
Yeah,
if we go back to being long distance, but every so often to do it this way, it does.
This is fun.
It is fun. Yeah,
well, it's just fun hanging out.
Yeah. And practicing our writing and watching bad movies because I like watching bad movies.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with watching bad movies from time to time. It's kind of fun.
Always really great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Gotta give it.
Yeah, had a great time.
Had a great time. It's
tried to start a revolution, but I couldn't distribute enough pamphlets.
I love the way you say pamphlets.
Pamphlets.
Pamphlets. It's so perfect.
Oh, look at that sheep over there. Oh, there's two sheep.
Welcome to New Zealand. There's nothing but sheep. Where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, I've forgotten. Oh, I have a website,
Oh, you do?
It's called www.nathanieldraper.com.
Yeah, I also know that you can find you on IMDb.
Oh, yes.
I have looked you up
on
IMDb. I also know that don't look up Nathan Draper because he's also an editor and
that's
he's
hilarious.
also on IMDb, but that's not you.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 IMDb pages for me.
Oh, really? One is Nate, one is Nathaniel?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I did not know that. I only knew that that you are on IMDb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't look at all the movies that are on IMDb, but look at the Shiraz is on IMDb.
Yeah, that one's on IMDb. And I know you can find through my website as well. Yeah.
And I know you're working on another project,
yes.
but mum's the word on that one.
Yes. Yeah. It will, we will be able to talk about it someday soon.
Yeah. And, I'm working on more music and you can find me in my band Robot Philosopher on Facebook, YouTube, and I think we're on Instagram now. And,
you think?
I'm not on social media anymore.
Oh, I know. I love how we're both so not
social media. But yeah, and you can find
every
us
time
here.
you ask me, how can people find you? I have to think about it.
And you always get your Twitter one back.
Oh yeah. I can't remember. I don't know if it's Nate Draper or Draper Nate. I
but
can't
how
remember.
often do you tweet? Really?
I don't. If I post photos on Instagram, it tweets automatically.
Oh, okay.
So that's.
Do you post on Instagram a lot?
Not really. Maybe like once every 3 months, I'll take a photo that I like. Oh, this is cool. I'll post this.
Okay,
yeah.
But there you have it. We're bad at social media, but we're good at watching bad movies. We're really good at watching bad movies.
This is one thing we can do.
Yeah. Get good at media literacy. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Peace out.
See ya.